As the chairman of the Temple Mount Heritage Foundation, it seems like things are shifting when it comes to public perception about the Temple Mount. Hallelujah. Do you anticipate any changes in access and prayer for Jews on the Temple Mount?
First of all, thank you very much for having us here. It's always very nice to be with a large group of people that you feel that the energy is that they want to do good things. That's always a good thing, and it's really a pleasure to be here. In terms of what I anticipate, I think we have to understand, I think everybody sitting here agrees, that we are now very strongly in the process of redemption. Redemption is coming to the world, and when redemption comes to the world, people want to understand. We see it in the prophet Amos, that God will bring a famine to the world. Not a famine for bread, and not a thirst for water, but a famine for the word of God. We see that happening, and once that happens, there's a desire to connect, and we see that desire to connect everywhere. Jews want to reconnect to their land, and they want to reconnect to their Torah. And peoples from all over the world want to reconnect as well. So if we saw 1,000 Jews going up to the Temple Mount on Jerusalem Day, which is something which has not happened since 1967, I remember when I first started going up to the Temple Mount 19 years ago, and there was just a few Jews going up, and to see what's happened during the course of these years is just a tremendous thing. But on the other hand, desire, and we have desire, nothing can stop desire. We know that desire is stronger than political leaders, it's stronger than the United Nations. When people have a desire to connect, it's going to happen. On the other hand, we have to remember that our father Jacob, he dreamt of a ladder, and that ladder had its head in the heavens, and it was firmly planted on the ground. And that teaches us that when we want to do heavenly things, we have to be practical as well. So that means we have to be ready to do things, to make things happen that will happen, but we have to help them along. So the first thing, we'll talk about three things. The first thing is prayer on the Temple Mount. I remember when I did not grow up religious. I grew up in Southern California. And I remember Anaheim, anybody? Disneyland? I always say I grew up in Fantasyland and I came to Adventureland. So in any case, I remember being 6 years old, sitting on the floor in front of my black and white television, and seeing a little black girl going into white school accompanied by hundreds of National Guardsmen. And I thought to myself, wow, like I was only 6 years old, but I was really proud of my country. I thought that's an incredible thing, that when there's something which is, there's a principle, and the country does what it has to do to make sure that it happens. So the first time I went up to the Temple Mount some 19 years ago, I had that same feeling. On the one hand, I felt just what an incredible thing to be here. On the other hand, this is like terrible. Why can't I pray here? This is the house of God. Why don't they let me pray here? So I vowed then I have to do things to try and make that happen. So since then, a lot of time has passed. A lot of things have happened. I've been arrested a couple times, but it's all for a good reason. We have to do things to kind of encourage things to happen. And as I sit here, I think of the fact that, we as religious Jews, when we try to go to the Temple Mount, we are discriminated against. So one of the things that we have done is we put in a suit to the Israel Supreme Court. That suit will finally be heard on the 18th of January, 2018. Now, we already have 1,000 people that are signed on to that suit. I want you people to be in touch with me. We want to get tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of people all over the world that identify with prayer on the Temple Mount and say, yes, we demand it for the Jews and for the non-Jews to pray on the Temple Mount. There can't be a situation where only Muslims pray on the Temple Mount. My definition is, who should pray on the Temple Mount? Anybody who's not against somebody else praying on the Temple Mount. The second thing is, once we all start praying on the Temple Mount, we need places to pray. It says in the Talmud that there were synagogues on the Temple Mount, even in the time of the temple. So I had this idea, maybe we can't build a temple quite so fast. Maybe it'll happen tomorrow, maybe it'll take another 10 years, 100 years, we don't know. But let's do what we can do. Let's build synagogues on the Temple Mount. So we started an Amutah, an NGO. It's called Yishai, for the establishment of synagogues on the Temple Mount. Why Yishai? Yishai is an abbreviation for Yachad Shivtei Yisrael, the people of Israel united. And Yishai was also the father of David. In the same way that we will start a synagogue on the Temple Mount, we will also build the temple. So we're hoping to push that along. And an incredible thing, you know, my field is building. I work in buildings, so when you want to build something, you have to have access to the land. What I found out was the Temple Mount is not registered in the state of Israel. So the first thing we're trying to do is register the Temple Mount in the state of Israel so our architect can start making plans. And we will have 4 synagogues in the Temple Mount, one in the name of each of the 4 mothers of the tribes of Israel. Yes? Rachel, Leah, Bilhah, and Zilpah, because the temple was destroyed because of hatred, and it will be rebuilt because of love. Amen. And the last thing I want to tell you about is a project which is just in the initial stages. We have to bring people to understand what is the temple. Our rabbis taught us that if the non-Jews of the world had understood what the temple was, not only it would not have been destroyed, but they would have put guards there to make sure that it wouldn't have been destroyed. So we're going to try and find a place in the hills around Jerusalem to build a large, almost 90% scale of the temple, to have a study center, to have guest rooms where people from all over the world can come and understand what is the internal meaning of the temple. And so maybe your Yeshiva of the Nations will have a place there to help teach other people what the temple is all about. Thank you very much.